Just getting centered in your body. Taking a couple of deep breaths to begin to align. Wiggling a bit, tapping if it feels aligned. Starting to get centered. And dropping in to your central channel as we align it with our higher selves, with our oversoul, with our true north, with our highest golden destiny timeline through our direct connection to organic source. Fully aligned, fully embodied with our quantum pillar, bringing that energy down from source and into our field, into our central column, connecting in through the heart, sending it down through the root, through the Earth Star chakra, down into the heart womb of Mother Sophia, allowing it to rest in her core. Sending love and gratitude back up through the network, through your physical body, through your quantum pillar, and all the way back to source. And then feeling that love and gratitude pulse back down towards you, establishing strength in that connection. And calling in our aligned soul family, helpers, and friends that are aligned with the frequency of this call. Calling on the frequencies of discernment, spiritual alignment, emotional mastery and resilience, and awakening our awareness to aligned embodiment techniques, grounded presence, and breathwork as a gateway to inner stillness. Expressing love and gratitude to everyone on this call and everyone watching the replay. Sinking into the depth of alignment that we bring in through our discussion today. Finalizing this with a couple more deep breaths as we begin to return to our body. And thank you. I'll pass it back to you guys. I'm complete.
So I work as a psychotherapist, psychologist, body worker, energy worker, and I'm kind of in the process now of unveiling what other things I maybe unintentionally have in my toolkit. I've actually just come from a session, a 2-hour session before, where I was doing generational trauma release, inner child work, and full just energy pulling out. So there's still things in myself that I'm discovering that I don't recognize as like a natural skill or ability. So um, I guess today I just want to get that as like a background as I'm still figuring out like what I actually call myself. Um, but a lot of the things that I have with me, um, I feel like quite a big calling to pass them on in a way that can be articulated and consumed in a really palatable way. So I had some ideas of what I wanted to bring to today's session, but the frequency has changed. And so not all of it is needed in the same way. So the reason why there's us three could be because we can work together on concepts and ideas. But I did want to at least pass on some things as a bit of a thanks for welcoming to this community. And I'm showing my true colors here by showing what is my first ever channeling I ever did when I was like 18 or like 20. and that was the Rainbow Phoenix, one of the first ever things that ever came through for me. So that's behind me as a bit of like a original frequency and authenticness that comes with stepping into your divine. Um, and I personally come from a very deep feminine quality, and I'm mastering my masculine side now. But that does mean some access to flow state. That means, capacity to understand, how emotions move through and being considerate and all those kind of things. But I'm kind of designing my own divine masculine within me, and in that, really figuring out through my body work as well what it is to be masculine. And, if just to give it a picture as to some things I work as, because I'm sure this is nice to hear some background as to me. I literally have someone lying down on a mat on the ground, and they, the second I make that touch, they can feel whether or not I'm shaky, whether or not I'm standing straight, and I'm spending an hour to 2 hours literally moving their body around, moving it, moving back over here, and it is just a straight 2 hours of that. And so at any point, if I am feeling weak, that comes through as a bit of a waiver, as like a quiver, and that makes them feel like they're not being secured and contained. And I wanted to have that echo a little bit in this idea of what it is like to hold someone on in a treatment like that, that containment. And that means having yourself not forcibly design these things around, but when you rock up, constantly putting yourself in a position where, or I constantly put myself in a position where I feel structurally strong so that I can weather whatever they twitch or respond to. And that's a quality of the divine masculine that is a counterpart to the divine feminine. Um, and it's this idea of this, the coming from like an Indian philosophy background of how the universe was created. They had, I think Shiva, was it Shiva or Shakti? Which one was the male counterpart? Does anyone, either of you know? I think Shiva. Yeah. So Shiva sat in the middle of the void in the universe, and he sat there in meditation for like 3 to 400,000 years, just meditating, did not move. And what what the female counterpart did, which might be Shakti or another female that was of that same quality, she because of his magnetic field of just staying exactly as he was, she was able to begin to weave the universe in all her creativeness and begin this cycle that was going like around him and like looping back and always coming back to see if he's still there to test, and then go back out and create more and more and really begin this kind of swirl of the universe. But it's not possible without that strong, unwavering and immovable force of, this is what I'm doing and I'm staying here. And no matter how much she might have come to either test to see if he moves, because she needs something that is stable and constant so that she can go out, feel everything that she feels, and comes back to something that is staying the same and staying constant. And it's an archetype of knowing yourself and being very intentional and directive. The flip side is when the universe is no longer needs to be created on the outside, but then needs to be created on the inside. And I'm sorry if this is not really direction that you think is relevant for the divine masculine call, but I feel showing polarity can really help comprehend of like who I want to embody today and what's being called for in any particular situation, because I like the idea of there being a third. Like we're no longer aiming for being masculine, we're no longer aiming for being feminine, we're being the third. And the third means the amalgamation of both and swaying between whatever needs in each moment. And it's quite, um, the percentage between either end could be very flexible in every minute, really. So the flip side, instead of the male staying still, now the divine feminine sits and waits as she crafts this internal life, this internal universe inside of her womb. So she can't move and she can't go anywhere. And now she has needs that needs to be accessed, needs to be she has to rely outside of herself. And so would she rely on something that is going to move in chaoticness and kind of maybe come back whenever? Or she can rely on the divine masculine that when it's told something, goes out in a straight line and comes back and gets the thing. And then the next need is given. I need this. Okay, goes out and comes straight back. It's a very straight line. And so it's the embodiment of that idea of the divine masculine knows exactly what it wants and it goes straight for it. And it's a flaw, but it's also something that is needed and is reliable and a constant. And so we can embody that in our bodies as well. I hope someone's recording this because I'm kind of on the fly right now. So there was an idea that I ran Glenn past yesterday, and it's talking about heaven as in our heads and earth as in our lower, and then our hearts in the middle. And it's always this trinity, the idea of trinity being very relevant and very important. And I really began to master this a lot more during last year when I was privy to reading, I think, the second book of the Celestine Prophecy about the 10th insight and how, in heaven, things are in every plankton of a second, there could be almost 2,000 to 2 trillion ideas happen at once, and the next plankton, a whole bunch again, and nothing is like stable. And then here on Earth, to have something manifest at the beginning can take up to 3 months to 2 years to 5 years to really finally get there and be its thing. So there's something powerful about time and constant energy being pushed into something. And so that's the divide that's literally in us, this head that can think of 1,000 things and imagine heaps of things, and then our lower core, which is really the stabilizing force. But then what's in the middle is our heart. And so the heaven meets earth for the inner child to play on. And so it's important for us to really recognize that, not in a way of like, oh, let's figure out how to manifest and let's get into the real big functionality of the heart. This divine masculine call was to say that it's about supporting the upper in a way that is strong and structured. There's many different ways of thinking about our womb space or our hara, and that being like the mother and the divine feminine, all that kind of stuff. But in today's call, it's actually about activating it in that way that is very conscious so that the foundations are engaged and online so that I'll do it this way. So the legs are online and the body can move around without the legs moving and feeling wonky too. You can see already that dance of like, well, if the legs are strong, then the body can actually really sway around and do what it needs to do. And so I'm not sure if either of you can stand right now, but I welcome you to stand up and I'll show you something that is a bit interesting. So yeah, I welcome you to, can you either of you stand up? You don't have to, you can turn your cameras off if you want. I don't care. But hopefully you can still see me. And basically, once you're standing up, I want you to stand up straight and I want you to lean all the way forward. Go to your tippy tops, leaning forward. Okay, and now start bringing yourself all the way back, and because you're on your heels, and feel that unstableness come in, and now come to the center. Stand right up straight. Once you're there, notice how your feet are flat on the ground. Now, nothing is actually activating right now. It's just you're just standing up straight. Maybe your knees are engaged. Maybe your back's engaged. I want you to now feel your big toe and just activate it and just almost turn it on a little bit. And then also at the same time, activate your heel so that it's the front of your foot and the back of your heel also pressing down, and feel that inner arch rising. You might be thinking, this is yoga. Well, this is activation, and yoga is all about really activating the body fully. And just feel that difference that's kind of coming online in your kind of like hips in your back. This allows you to be like literally locked into the ground. You can even step a little bit wider now, and I want you to relax the feet and just move your body around, feel that looseness. Feel how it's a little bit like if someone was to push you and tackle you, you'd probably just fly off the ground. Like you could literally just get tackled right now. And then I want you to flatten your feet and then engage your big toes and your heels. And now, if you try and move, you actually got a lot of like bend and sway that's coming up from your knees and into your hips. And now this upper body can sway, but those legs are much more mechanical and like if you got tackled, you'd be able to like at least pull into the ground a little bit. And that's that idea of like actually activating, stabilizing so that your core can actually do what it needs to do. And I welcome you now to come sit down because what that follows onto is this idea of um, our breathing. So this is all about consciousness. You know, divine feminine versus divine masculine, not to be in any way offensive or derogatory, but the divine masculine is always about such intense focus and conscious application. Divine feminine is intuition and trusting your flow. And it has a little bit of the masculine in it that's like, oh, this is the thing I want to do. So I'm going to lock off the flow and channel it that way. But most of the time, the divine feminine is about just, I feel like doing this, and now I feel like doing this. And, it's all about expressing and getting into that. Divine masculine is in a very rudimentary, like duality way. If I want to embody it more, it's very consciously activating and choosing that this is the way. And it gives the boundaries and containment of the divine feminine to move within. Um, so the reason why I was going to follow on to breathing is because we actually have three sections in our body. We've got our lower belly, which is the lower dantian, and then the center of us, which is the upper belly where the diaphragm is, and then we've got our chest. And there's three different systems there of breath that maybe you've had some training in where you're being taught in your meditation to breathe lower, middle, chest, chest, middle, lower. That's the real official way to do meditative breath. um, and sometimes if you might be exploring other ways as well, totally fine. But to activate all systems, it's recommended to breathe through all three parts. And there's actually a meridian. You might know traditional Chinese medicine, how they've got like your acupuncture and they put them all on different points in your arm or in your body. Those are following meridian lines. And there is six in the arms, six in the legs. And one of them is called the triple heater, which is exactly what I'm talking about today. It's this three-part system in the body that regulates the heat, it regulates the breath, it regulates the lymph node systems. It really coordinates this system in us that we take kind of for granted sometimes. And even sometimes when we look at our hands and they're a bit cold and we're like, what's going on? It's sometimes a dysfunctionality with that meridian. So I'll just do a little check-in. Maybe I'll get you guys to come off mute for a second. How's everyone kind of comprehending this so far? Is it digestible?
Yeah, it hits for me.
Yeah?
I like it.
Yeah, it
Okay.
makes perfect sense.
Okay, cool. I do find this is quite fun to talk about. So yeah, I'm quite happy to keep talking and following down this path because this is embodiment work, really. And this is the kind of stuff that I'd be open to, teaching to the wider community so that they actually have the opportunity to take things that are, digestible and applicable. Um, so when it comes to our breathing, I want you to just close down your eyes. I've kind of ruined the surprise in that all three should be used, but I want you to check in now and notice when you're breathing, where is it coming from? Is it your chest? Is it your belly? Is it your lower belly? You've already dropped in a little bit, so maybe there's a chance that it's probably in that more relaxed parasympathetic state, which can be activating the lower belly more. So I'll join you in that. I know for me, I'm in my chest, which isn't a bad thing. It's just because I'm online. Like I'm talking right now. I'm live in this chat. This is, primarily, this is like a live thing I'm having to engage with you in. If I wanted to relax more, I'd probably, yeah, okay. Yeah. And that's perfectly fine. Um, so what that can sometimes mean is that you both will have to, when you go to rest, consciously tell yourself, hey, let's activate the lower belly. Let's get that parasympathetic going so we can stimulate the relaxation and the restorative elements. There are people like myself in the past who have done so much healing from a place of functional freeze that they then educate themselves to only breathe through their lower belly being parasympathetic all the time and they're not activating. And so they're not stepping into that deliberate decision to be ready and in the world. And that can be a lot of the spiritual community. I'm not going to lie. A lot of them are here because they're here for their healing and they stick around because they realize they become more intuitive and whatnot, but they forget to re-engage themselves. And I'm very lucky because I'm dealing with people on a mat where if I stay in a relaxed state the whole time, I'm going to be susceptible because you don't relax around people releasing energy. You relax when you're by yourself or you're with people who aren't going to dump energy on you, and you can actually really begin that healing process and open up. So what I'm talking about here is again, a deliberate consciousness where you are choosing where you want to breathe from and taking the responsibility that I'm here now. Let's get that other breathing going. All right, choosing to relax. I'm leaving the situation now, bringing it back up. And it's that very conscious breath of where you want to be. And then even when you leave a meditation like this, or a session like this in MSI, when you leave the room, choosing, do I want to stay in that state of being or move to the next state of being? And again, here comes some mastery that is similar to Hermes Trismegistus's work in Hermetics. Choose, like, everything is you like that mastery of emotions. Like, I'm in this emotion now, choose to come back, and then I choose this emotion instead. I'm in this state of being right now, pull myself back to a centered position, and then I choose this emotion instead. The problem is there is you might have noticed me describing the emotion being forward, and that can be a concept where we're in the drama. Like, emotions here, my head's in it. I'm in the drama. You might even notice I'm like leaned into it as well. And so, and then when I'm like pulling myself out of it, I'm in like a centered slash withdrawn state, but then I'm able to, well, not really withdrawn. I'm coming back to a center state, being like, oh, okay, that's my center. And then I can repivot to a different emotion, choose, I want to be in joy, or I want to be in content, or I want to be in excitement instead. And it's just that choice of moving in and out. Um, but notice how I had to lean, like I'm leaning into that drama in some way. This can happen. And this is a topic that I was going to speak about today, which is, I think this is unfolding in a very natural manner. It'd be interesting to see how my throat goes after this. But so much talking. But yeah, if you're all just fine to listen, then you guys can just, enjoy the chat, enjoy the, I've listened to a teacher before. His name's Emerald. And when I listen to him, my brain feels like it's getting massaged. It's like, oh, this all makes sense. I'm getting like recalibrated. So I hope there's some sort of respite and some, I guess, remembrance that comes from this too. So when it comes to relationships, or even right now, you both may be giving me a lot of energy, and I am in turn giving back that energy by continuing to talk, by leaning in and like actually saying, okay, there's more information, and I'm feeling that reciprocal sensation with you. Um, and I get that as well by doing check-ins. I validate how you're feeling. I'm checking in. So you continue to give me more energy. So then I give out more energy. It's reciprocal, and that's a healthy nature. When it comes to this idea of like leaning back and forth, it's kind of like a decision on where we're moving with our cup of energy. And we every day we wake up with a new cup, and sometimes we wake up a bit empty because our dreams were hectic, or we wake up feeling more full, or maybe there's so much inspiring words from this phone call that when you get off, vibrationally, you're just like ready for the day and you've got a full cup. But depending on what you decide to do with that cup, will you go because you're feeling all full? Maybe you might have some like samsara play out where you go self-sabotage yourself and go immediately to the computer and give away all that happiness so that you're feeling a little bit more where it's comfortable to you at like maybe a half cup or a three-quarter cup. Noticing that and recognizing the times when you're leaning into someone and you're both pouring into each other's cups at the same time with fresh water, or times where, maybe now I pivot and I start talking about my relationship problems, and both of you are leaning into me, you're pouring energy into me, and I'm pouring back my own cup that's filled with some stuff that maybe isn't that good. And now you're stuck with my energy. Now you've got bits of my energy in your cup because you were leaning into someone and they've broken your trust. And energetically, you've got to recognize, oh, hold on, now I've got to pull back and just center myself here because it's stuff that I shouldn't be really be opening up to because I don't want to taint my water and then I have to go clear my water out and then I can, use it again. It's very real. And I'm sure some of you experience this in some of the containers that we're in, where we are, you know, going through something very big and opening, and then suddenly there's some like expression and some emotions, and we've got to have some conscious decision to change gears and come back to that centered spot. A lot of the times in like Zen Buddhism and stuff, it's like, don't even lean in, just stay centered the whole time. And that's a very masculine thing to choose to do. Um, and I'm so sorry that I have to use such duality words, but it is um, it's a terminology building block that you can use to get to wherever you need to get to, and then you can get rid of that block once you're at that point. But for today's lessons, it's just to show this side, okay, I'm in this situation, I'll use this side, and eventually it will get more fluid and you won't even have to remember the way I described it. It's just embodiment of this, embodiment of that, and it loses all its gender and turns into like real um, just straight values, which echoes further than any gender duality. But for today's session, you're going to be hearing a lot like females do this, males do this. It's easier to identify this way when you're in this situation, vice versa, don't know. And because we're on the Divine Masculine call, I'm focusing on the traits that are very masculine in a way. So now that that's out of the way, I'm going to reverse and come back to this idea of the cup. So when we're leaning our cup into situations like this, we are in that reciprocal change, but we're also in the drama. And sometimes it's okay to be in that play out with someone, but knowing when we need to come back. So I'll invite you now to literally sit up a little bit straight in your chair and start leaning forward towards the camera and noticing when your body, where's your spine? Feel that like unbalancedness. Feel like, oh, okay, like I'm having to activate my knees, I'm having to activate my lower back a little bit. I'm on. And see how much energy is now in the front of you and it's really there. And see that cut that's like really exposed, but then also in that exchange. Start feeling really slowly pull yourself back and feel that intention to really bring yourself back. And now overshoot, go further back than what you normally would. And sit a little bit further back. See how things I could say right now, they're just waters on a duck. There's water on a duck's back. Doesn't even matter. You're kind of here, kind of not. Doesn't matter. And I could say really anything and it won't matter too much. Cool. But you know what I'm saying is kind of important today. And so where's that middle point? I invite you now to find that center point. So come sit up a bit more in your chair. Come sit more with a straighter spine. Don't over pour in. Don't sit back out. Right here is your centered. This is what it's like to feel centered. This is it. It gets maybe more intricate with deeper spiritual work, but this is exactly what it feels like to feel centered. And from here, you have choice. And that is a lot of what this is all about, conscious decisioning and putting yourself in the spot consistently to make decisions. So noticing when I'm a little bit off balance here, I'm not in a position where I'm able to react and respond. Move myself back to a center position so I can do that. Oh, I'm leaning back out of this because it's probably a lot for me right now. I need to maybe make myself aware of some of the emotions that are making me feel like I'm needing to lean back because we don't often look at someone and be like, I'm going to lean back. I don't care about this person. Normally, it's because I don't value what they're saying. Their emotions are leaking out into me or something of a sort. There's actually really a really strong reason why we would lean away from someone. And we can come back to a center position to validate yourself and them by just checking in and saying, okay, why am I leaning away? It's because of this. Okay, well, let's just feel into that and then put that aside or do whatever you need to do. But coming back to centeredness and choice is always going to be the best option because then you're back in the field and being conscious either to what's playing out. Leni, Glenn, anyone who listens to this, you are now not playing like a game where every moment doesn't mean anything. every moment means something. And so you deciding to check out is a symbol, and you being in any particular situation or samsara is meant for you. So being active and being putting yourself in the best position possible in every situation you can is always going to lead to you escaping the loop and evolving past the loop. Otherwise, it gets kicked down the line and you go through it again. So this call isn't meant to be saying do centeredness and be this way. It's saying put yourself in the best position, which means embodying a bit more of the masculinity to set the boundaries so then you can go into your flow state so you can be ready to do what you need to do. And that's what a lot of the concepts are of the divine masculine, that it's very conscious. It can see ahead, it can foreplan things, and it can set the containment field so that when it's time to flow and you can hit those walls and feel safe that you can really expand out and move into. So I'm sweating a lot. I've obviously been getting into my flow here. And they're definitely the main things I wanted to roll through. There is this idea of when we come into relationships, but I don't know if it's necessary to talk about today, but I will bookmark it for another time, maybe. So that's a really quick run through. I'd love for now for this to be a time where we kind of share about like what it feels like if you ever feel like you dip between like that fluidness of like, oh, I'm feeling a bit masculine today, I'm feeling a little bit like feminine today, and maybe even like, do you ever choose to be more masculine? Do you choose to be more feminine? Is that ever like a thought process for you? Yeah, welcome you back into the chats.
But as far as masculine versus feminine, I would say yes for sure. I think it was last week. At times, I'll just kind of feel called to like wear certain colors, or I'm like really kind of drawing on this balance. My job is like very masculine oriented, so a lot of the time, like if I'm too far one way or the other, like I really have just like a default intention to kind of like that union within. So I'll like seek ways to basically find balance. As like consciously, it's more not. It's become more conscious over time, but really it's just kind of like intuitively I'll just notice like, oh, today. Sorry if there's sound. Today, like I haven't worn a pink shirt in like probably months, but I was like, today is the day, and then I dug my other pink shirt out. But like really, I'm not super conscious about it. I was just like, oh, I'm doing some laundry. I'll just toss this in here. So that's what came through for me.
Awesome. How about you, Miss Lenny?
Yeah, for me, I don't really think about like energies and tasks in like a masculine feminine sort of way. Like I don't necessarily label it that way. I lean into sort of the full trust in the balance that I have, and I listen to my body and I listen to what the needs of the day or week are. And so there's definitely times where I know like, okay, well, I need to strategize and I need to, do this, that, or the other that, is probably more, in line with like a masculine energy. But then if I'm in that too long, or if there's other days where I feel like, I'm maybe a little bit stagnant, I need to like get out and do something and have a little bit of flow. And so I sort of lean into the flow to keep me in balance, sort of between whatever it is that I need, because knowing that, divine union isn't necessarily 50-50 all the time, one side or the other. It's very much a spectrum and it ebbs and flows depending on what the energies are of the day or of your environment or, your to-do list or whatever it is. And so I sort of just set the intention that all will flow in divine alignment. And then I just listen to, the callings and whatever is sort of driving me and pushing me to be where I need to be and do what I need to be doing.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Both, I'm glad it's kind of, sparked some concepts and ideas within both of you, because it is just a conversation, like a philosophy point in some ways. Because I think we are moving away from those templates in general. But there was an idea that I wanted to talk about, because we all know that love is like the highest. It is like the best, it's the most powerful, whatever. But what if love embodies, it is that unification, what is, I guess, the masculine representation of love? What is that? Does either of you get like a response to that at all? Like anything you want to extend on that? Because that's something I'm curious about at the moment. Just in this now.
The first thing I'm hearing is like supporting the whole, like in whatever way that needs to be. So like keep helping to keep things balanced and aligned between sort of those three energies, because for me it's as much as it's about divine masculine and divine feminine, there's also a very strong element of like the divine child and that creativity that still like needs its own room to kind of grow and play, and maybe it leans a little bit masculine or feminine depending on the circumstance. But when I think, what is the masculine's role in that, it's sort of to lead, guide, direct, and support.
Okay.
Yeah, I would
Cool.
say for me it was more like provide and protect. Those were like the first two words that came through for me. Um,
Mm.
I don't know if any particular order, but like that's what came through immediately for me. The masculine is like it's like it's an action, right? It's more like, hey, I'm gonna do this, or this is what I've done for you, something along those lines.
Yeah. It's interesting because when I hear you say that, the first thing I get is this idea of like the masculine being a straight line and the feminine being that like curvy line and that sway. And an action is very factual. I did this, I go do that. And even knowledge, like a book, is a set structures of actions or instructions, and that is what it is. And so I actually wanted to lead us into talking about numerology here because that is a really interesting like reflection point, because 2, 5, and 8 is feminine numbers, and 1, 4, and 7 are the masculine numbers, with 3, 6, and 9 being completion or like wholes. And those can give us even more. Yeah, yeah, it can give us more direction. Are you familiar with those kind of ideas? I'm just gonna keep rolling. Um,
No, just
sorry, I thought,
369. I was like, yes,
yeah,
yes.
yeah, yeah. So, sorry, I thought you were going to say something, Glenn. So 1 is all about like new intentional, like it's very directive. It's like fresh. It could be like ideas. It can be like this is the first action, the first movement. 4 is literally the structure, the boundaries, the building of foundations. And 7 is all that knowledge and teaching and sharing and that kind of way of like um holding data to equal something in particular. And I guess they all carry this idea of the straight line of that it's, it is this and it doesn't waver. And that is really important because it gives us direction. It lets us know this is exactly what it is. And then we can expand from it. The same way that we can all agree that we can all agree to one standard. And then we can start jumping and leaping from that standard to make further understandings until we come to a new understanding. And that's our new joint agreement, and we keep jumping from there. And so I really wanted to bring that into, I guess, the field because I just find it a very, I guess, a really good embodiment of values and morals and that containing kind of element of the masculine that this is what I am and this is exactly what I believe in and this is how I move. And um, it's very useful for us to tune into and almost bring more into our lives as we're starting to go through really significant changes. We're going to move away from general um, masculine talk here and move more into like what's coming next and why this isn't relevant for us to talk about, or maybe for me to introduce today, is this idea of the golden timeline, the crystalline timeline, But what comes with there being positive timelines also comes with the idea that there must be other timelines that we're leaving and what it means to leave those timelines. And it means being strong and saying, no, that is not what I'm choosing. No, that's not my morals. That's not my values. No, I don't want to go in that direction. And that is where the masculine's coming in. The feminine can feel that that's not where I want to go, but the masculine side is where it's saying, putting the boundary up, putting the structures and morals up and saying, I don't do that anymore. And it's very relevant in this time period because we're going much faster into quantum jumps. New timelines are being created, and there is this splitting of the prisms that's occurring. But to some level, and check the disharmony here as I say it, because I'm still not 100% sure the resonance that I'm trying to say this with. But if you don't clear the chords, if you still keep people around, you don't get a perfect shot at that timeline, at the crystalline timeline, at the golden timeline. You get the middle point of them. So if someone's aiming for Armageddon and you're aiming for crystalline and nothing happens, if they're still around, it's not possible. It makes it into like a half disaster, a half Armageddon. Some karma has to play out because they're still in your field. It's very heavy to talk about this stuff, but it's not that hard when you can trust that the people you let go of can heal and go on their own way and come back and join you at a different stage of this life, at this different incarnation. If they're meant to come back, they'll come back. But what's really important for us now is to instill the empowerment of being strong and resilient and just tuning in, saying, this is what I believe in. This is not in resonance. This I like, and really calling in that divine masculine element within us to make the tough calls and maybe ghost a couple of people. Don't be rude and don't be like, oh, you're not in the right resonance, I've got to go. Just that softening of like, maybe I'm sorry, I'm a bit busy today, I'm not available, and just creating that separation so that it creates space. A masculine works really well at setting the boundaries and also pushing out the things so that space is created. And sometimes the feminine can freak out because it's like, oh my God, so much space. I got to fill it up with the old things. It's like, no, just enjoy and feel what it's like to expand in that space and maybe even start grabbing the things that you want and putting that in the space as well. It's it's a whole different concepts there, but it's very relevant to this now. People who listen to this maybe in like 2 months' time and stuff may be catching this too late, but it's very important right now that we leave this environment and start embodying what's important to us and start making the calls, maybe not making ourselves so available energetically. I mean, I'm in a winter period here, so seasonally, it's very important for me. You guys are getting close to summer and spring, so it's all about, shining your brightest light, but noticing those who might be putting the blinders on you a little bit and just saying, oh, no, don't shine that way. It's like, cool, all right, well, I'm not going to shine in your direction then. I'm going to shine over here. Or just asking them to leave, just don't be around me then if you're not going to let me shine the way I'm going to shine. Because that is the crystalline timeline, and that is not the golden timeline, the crystalline timeline. It's crystalline timeline means balance, and this is where we're going to finally meet ourselves in what would be the infinity circle of the exchange of relationships and what we tolerate in our relationships. Today, I've already introduced this idea of a reciprocal tension between both of you and me and whoever listens to this call. This leaning in, you're feeding me energy, I'm feeling that, I'm giving it back. It is equal. I give more because I've been invited into this environment, and so I'm honoring that and showing that. And then it gets to a point where I have to meet it and say, I've given enough and wait to be received back. That is healthy. You can choose to stop giving and begin to ask for the balance. And that is going to be what's required as we update contracts with people. Doesn't mean cutting out people straight away because they haven't met your standards. It means being honest and emotionally available to say, hey, when you do this, I feel this way. I want this. And then if they don't want to meet you in that, then it's time to see them go, or it might be time to shift the gears and change expectations. But the infinity circle is very relevant right now because the crystalline timeline doesn't have 80-20 relationships. It doesn't even have 70-30 relationships. You know, it doesn't think about the potential of someone. The potential of someone does not actually exist. It is a heaven generated reality that is not embodied on this earth. And it is a fallacy to believe that you have the ability to predict when someone is actually going to step into their potential. It doesn't exist. It's not real. What is real is asking them, hey, I'm noticing I'm giving a lot more in this relationship. I want this, or I need this from you to make this feel balanced. And then checking them. And they might say, yeah, I can do that. Check. Do they actually follow through? If they don't, then the potential's not there. It's not actually there. It's a very big topic, and my heart opens to this a lot because I'm gonna have to do the work here. It's not like you two, like go do your work. Like all three of us and anyone who listens to this call separates from here and either does it or doesn't and gets dragged with someone else's timeline. They get skirted away because they've kept people in their lives that are the 30-70s, 80-20s. God forbid if there's any 90-10s. But we're all vibrating so high that we've got to be really conscious of this. And it means calling in the divine masculine at that frequency that is a little bit more strong, but very empowering. And that gives room for the divine feminine to really come out and be the full expression. I think frequencies we have not been yet. So, yeah, I really, really welcome that. And I'm also taking on the mantle too, and I want to be the role model. So, yeah, can't wait to embody that. And I think that's another little thing too. Like, you know, if you're going to be a sharer, a teacher, you got to role model the faith a little bit. So, you know, that's the strongest way you can do it. That's pretty much everything from me that I feel is needed. And I think what I'll welcome in now is kind of like any three of us coming into like a discussion point. There's more things that come up. I'll probably introduce as a discussion point, not so much as me teaching. And I'm going to switch gears into more of like a personal relating style. But I guess before I switch into that gear, I guess we can. Does this call go to 1:30 or 2? Oh, sorry, it's another half an hour or an hour, or is it done now?
Yeah, we can go. We go. We go where it goes.
We go where it goes. Okay. Yeah, I did have it till 2. So what I will do, I'm going to stay in this gear for another 10 to 15 minutes. I encourage you now to check in to see if there's any points that I've talked about or any extensions you want me to go into while we're in this kind of field. Otherwise, I'm going to reverse back into being like me and, you know, being at that authentic expression level. That makes sense. So yeah, any questions?
I just wanted to thank you for everything that you said so far, but particularly about the masculine boundary setting and like sort of space creation. Like that's a frequency that I've been very much in and delving deeper into in the layers that I've been releasing. And it's definitely not an easy process, like at times, but I definitely see the value in it. And the more that I release and the more that I see, the need for, because there's sort of different teachings all over the spectrum, right? Like where some people will say, it's important to cut cords, and like that's kind of the languaging they use. I also hear teachings sort of on the opposite side that say, well, everything is a part of you, and so pull in all parts of yourself. And so I think there's this interesting and harmonious balance that can emerge when you're not treating it as though you're like cutting off a part of yourself, but you're just simply saying, I no longer accept this in this timeline. And so it's time to make a shift. And at that point, it's more of like a boundary instead of like a separation. And I think that's an important distinction to really notice and realize. And, also the beauty in reclaiming that space. I mean, we've heard open, reclaim, restore as a theme, for the majority of this year, thanks to activations with JJ. And that's something that has resonated with me a lot. And sort of even the template of this 3-word, whatever you want to call it, has been a little bit of a circulatory in my field as well, because I'm finding ways to utilize that all over the place. And so just like reclaiming the energy from maybe memories that have gotten left behind on certain timelines, like recognizing that those are there, identifying the need to sort of reclaim that space in your energy body, and then just stepping into that with sovereignty and the frequency of divine embodiment and allowing that space for it to flush, even when it's a little nerve-wracking sometimes. And then just empowering what wants to emerge next by just giving it the grace and the space to unfold naturally in its divine beauty. So thank you for bringing that to the table.
Yeehaw. Awesome. No, really awesome. I'm actually not going to comment on any of it. I think just going to let that sit in the air and be as it is. Yeah. Awesome.
I really enjoyed the part that you shared about the infinity specifically. Really hit for me about, you know, in our community specifically, activations with JJ. There's a lot of talk about timelines and this and golden and crystal and for me, like when I first came into it, I was like, okay, like some of it resonated, some of it didn't, and a lot of it just didn't make a whole lot of sense because I come from a much wider, much more open spiritual community. And then you get into this one, it's very potent, very high frequency. And then, you know, we start calling in our golden timeline, our crystalline timeline. Yeah, I love that. Thank you. But then we still have a bunch of work to do, right? Or we still have this, I'm talking about myself too. Like we still have people in our field where it's like, oh, you resonate enough. Like my benchmark is kind of like 80. If we're at 80, I'm cool. I can rock with 80. I can work with price 75, you know. But when you said that about like, it was like a deep remembrance. It was like, hey, you're gonna basically kind of, you know, not quite make it because you have these people attached. I don't really have a whole lot of qualms anymore about like, I'm completely fine with letting people slide out of my reality. I never see them again. It's like, hey, you know, best luck to you. We don't necessarily even need to talk about it. We could talk about it in our, and that's kind of a cold way in a way, but also like when you get really clear and focused on your field, and when you have deep resonance in all these other spiritual communities, deep resonance in your relationships, people who don't jive up, I guess, I don't know why I said jive, that's just what came through. Like it's okay, and maybe because I am in a much more masculine frequency, it's okay for me to be like, hey, cool, like, you know, we had fun, it's been real, like I'll see you probably when I see you, you know, and we don't necessarily, and I kind of struggle with that in a way too, because it's like, especially if they're like a family member, if there's somebody that's super close to you. I shared a personal story with you recently. I had like my own mentor as well, and it's kind of like, man, like this stuff is like these initiations that we're calling in, they hurt a lot, you know, and just kind of like calling that in, but also like being that stillness that we talk about, being that that kind of like anchor in the quantum, where it's, for me, it's just like it is, you know, I'm not going to say it is what it is, but for me, it's just like that calm in the storm. Like I've been through so many initiations where I've called this in, or I chose this for whatever reason it was, and I'm okay with the outcome, with the highest outcome. And I don't necessarily need to kind of weave with you if we aren't of the frequency that's that net. I call it like a net spiral up. So I have a net spiral up kind of frequency. So yeah, I do see a lot, there is this theme in community where it's like, do as I say, not as I do. Or, you know, it's like every 30 days, the full moon like throws these people for a wreck. They're just like a mess. And you're like, if you're really truly embodied, like why is the moon like, you know, like why is it every 30 days? Like it's the end of the world. So I think that's kind of the frequency. It definitely hit what you said, because I was like, oh, sorry. I'll pass it.
Cool. Adds to the full moon vibe.
I definitely think a lot of people are unconscious of that, because I was one of them for a while. But I mean, like, how often do you like write it on the calendar that, oh, things were crazy this week, and oh, it just happens to line up with the full moon? Like I did start to realize it at one point. But you know, like I mentioned, like being in the thick of the boundary setting and everything else, like over the last 6 months, it does not affect me whatsoever anymore, the energies of the moon. So I thought that was an interesting realization as well. kind of being pulled into that energy and like identifying where it is and like again with the boundary setting, like, nope, that doesn't apply to me anymore. Thanks though.
Yeah, pretty cool. Pretty cool that it doesn't affect you like that. Yeah, I actually noticed now that doesn't really affect me that much either. I mean, some full moons definitely bring up stuff for me. But I'm also noticing that I have a lot of compassion for people who get really spun out. And for me personally, I'm coming from a place I've got like a psych background. I've got like a body embodiment background. Like I know so much more. And if someone actually hasn't learned this, then like if I expect them to be any better than what they are, then it's kind of like, like respect their journey in a way, somewhat. And even I'm still haven't figured it out. So I've got a lot of compassion for people who get affected by it. But then what's actually important is me choosing to not be around them. And that's the part that's actually compassionate to self. And now we're on this thing of like compassion, it's yeah, not passing judgment, but then choosing what's best for you kind of vibe is kind of what I think about. Shoot. Ben was saying something that I really want to touch on.
The
Oh
infinity
man.
symbol. Was it the infinity symbol
Now the infinity
or
symbol.
the
And then
masculine frequency about being that kind of like anchor in the quantum, like the
yeah,
initiations?
yeah. I guess there was this idea roughly in my head of like, um, it's not even worth kind of talking about. It's just a funny idea of because I think I had something come up as you were talking. I was like, oh, okay, this is gonna be that harsh. Oh, that's right. So we, all three of us here, anyone who gets the privilege to listen to this as well, are likely people who love, like genuinely love. And that's an issue because what happens is that we see these people around us that we love so much that we want the best for them. And I want to say that's the rescuing mentality, but I actually think it's actually an uneducated modality. It's a uneducated or poorly educated assumption as to how you can actually help them grow and live a better life. And what it means sometimes to help someone grow, i.e., I want the external to evolve and change to be better, actually means letting them go and going inward to do the work so then they can show up as the frequency that I then need them at, which is a pretty big concept if you haven't really like seen it happen. But as I'm saying, like, hey, we're going towards crystalline timelines, going towards cold timelines. You got to let go of these people, let them slip away. Don't be mean to them. Don't, tell them to F off or whatever. It means just letting them go because there is a chance that as you join the crystalline timeline, they come back as well as the new frequency. And you didn't have to do a thing. And that's the important part here because you've cut away the tethers that was the samsara playing out between you two, because that's what you've agreed. Everyone you manifest in your reality is a mirror for you, either to learn or do whatever. So now we're getting down to the mechanicalness of why we're doing what we're doing. And it just means if I see someone and I want them to change, I literally just have to actually let them go. And it's like with great power comes even greater responsibility, which means just like I'm gonna fully witness you in your flaws and your whatevers. And I'm actually going to choose to not dive into them and just ask, what do you like to do? And be in joy with them instead. And then when I'm done with them, like I said, I'm done hanging out with them, done being in joy with them. I then create a lot of space because I know that I can't, it's quite a conscious effort to enjoy being in joy with them. And that's the energy thing as well. Like, oh, I have to use a lot more energy to figure out what I like doing with them to get there. Um, that's just something, it's definitely like a really sound formula, but it doesn't really work when it comes to meeting new people or meeting people that you're still trying to figure out. And I know this personally a lot that sometimes I'll get frustrated or I won't like someone for a little while. And it's actually because I don't understand them. And I just need to figure out what I actually like, what I just need to find a point to like connect with them with and resonate with. So that's just a little bit of like edging around a concept that I was providing them. It's not always that way, but people that we know in our lives, we've called friends before, and we need to maybe put distance between that formula of, well, I want them to be better. I want them to live a better life. I love them so much. I'm going to create the space, do the inner work, and then genuinely hope that they come back as a better frequency. And that's all you can do. And I don't like using the word hope because sometimes it's false positivity, but you just have to trust genuinely. And that is kind of the sad part about all of this timeline stuff, is that it's not everyone comes along. You know, there is some very noble missions that Melchizedek puts out about this idea of like, hey, we've all gone to the 4D now and we're able to bring everyone with us. So I guess we're all doing our own work, and you get this collective, like, oh, let's lift the collective together. But actually, you just need to walk around in the collective being your resonance, and you're doing the work. And it's like, is it really that easy? Do I, is it, don't I just put some books out? Do I make a podcast and tell people the stuff? It's like, no, like, just do this thing that's really hard, where it's like, be bright for 24 hours a day. Can you do that? I can go. And then you're only bright for like 30 minutes, and then you dip down again. And you're like, oh, and then you get another spark, and then you're not. So like, I implore people to redirect their focus to saying, can you actually vibrate the whole day in that high frequency? Have that as your goal, not looking like you need to educate the world, because someone else will do it. It's a really humbling thing to know that someone else will probably do it, and you've got a bigger job of just being the light you need to be, which is so like hippy dippy and psychedelic-y, and I gotta
But
take the
also
piss out of it.
necessary.
It's super necessary, but yeah, I just got to take the piss out of it a little bit, because it's also not very real, because we're playing out samsaras, and we've got our own issues that we have each day, like money and the world and stuff like that. And it's just not possible immediately, but it's definitely a goal that's achievable at some point. And you meet those old people who are out in their yard, and they just love looking at grass. They're having the best time, So aim for that. Um, so yeah, that's kind of like a real finishing point that I'm gonna leave it there with. And I'm gonna change gears now back into just hanging out with y'all. So yeah, that's it.
One thing I
Uh,
will say is, like, as opposed to, like you said, hoping for the best, um,
mm,
I think that's a good sentiment to a degree, but because you're putting positive energy out there, you want things to go well. But at the same
mm,
time, like, if it's not realistic, then I wonder if a more effective place to approach it is to just like release it with love and gratitude, and just stay in the
mm.
neutrality of seeing what happens. Like,
And
'cause
that's true.
you can
It's so true, because then it's agendaless. You don't have an agenda for them, You're not choosing their life.
exactly. Yeah, because you're almost like subliminally putting your own hooks into that of
Mm,
expectations or whatever it is, where that could also, be a little bit sticky as well. And so
yeah.
just kind of holding that high frequency with the appreciation and, thank you for the lessons. And kind of like you said before, if it's meant to be, then it'll work out in its natural perfection. And I hold space for your
Mm,
journey, whatever you choose for that to be. And so with love and light, I'll catch you later.
yeah. 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 Pretty much that. I don't, yeah, again, just sitting in that. Yeah. Mm,
Yeah. I love what you said earlier about how what was it? It was about, uh, we have these expectations for people, right? And, gosh, what was it? But really, it's like a fallacy, because, like, you don't know if they're really going to step in. And people will tell you, like,
oh,
some people are
entry.
just words. Yeah, they're just wordsmiths. So they say all these fancy words, and then they evoke these emotions out of you, and you hang around. And I noticed that people don't mind wasting your time, right? That's just a lesson I've learned throughout my
Mm,
life. They can string you along literally forever if you don't have the boundary to be like, nah, like, I'm good. Like, I think I've told Leni before, like, I really watch actions over time. The words are great for context. The words are great to kind of know your story and kind of have an understanding. But really, what I'm watching is your actions over time. That's something that I can like put my thumb on. Like, I've met people who could tell you all this stuff and they can get you so, and really, as a tapped in person, you can feel into that frequency and you can know immediately, right? We'll know if you're genuine or if you're not. But I like that you said that, and then having somebody kind of loop back around frequency wise is really interesting, that concept, because I've actually had it happen in my life. Not like they loop back as a spiritual person, a friend of mine. I was like, oh, sick! Like you're spiritual. Like we're cool. We can be friends or whatever it was. But a lot of the times I've had people loop back as kind of like a test too, right? It's a frequency check before the manifestation. They loop back and they're like, hey, here I am again, right? They just want your attention, your affection, whatever it is, right? And you're like, no, like actually, like I didn't even think I'd ever run into you again. Just like you can check with my higher self. Like I've literally told somebody I'll see you in the next life, essentially, and not in a mean way, but from a very neutral, like, hey, we had our fun, but I'm not interested anymore. She's not that cute. Like real talk.
Yeah, full power to that.
Yeah, if she was cute enough, maybe, but like the unhealed version, but no.
Yeah. It's interesting because if I feel like us here on this call have actually a lot of access to seeing contracts, and maybe with some conscious effort, we can actually like see, is there a remaining contract here? Do we want to keep that contract? Am I the person that's going to be that kind of communal person? But I haven't practiced that so much so, but I just thought about that then. I was like, there's someone I've seen recently who is on another path, but does bring me a little bit of joy. But then I don't know, yeah, I probably will end up just kind of keeping more distance and just it. I wrote about this back in February. It's like when it comes to these people who you're going to start, not talking to as much, it's just it's like for how long and then how many days between the next time you see them, kind of thing. And it can be a simple formula like that. So I saw that person who I'm kind of like, they're really nice and we've got a big history and they don't actually do anything wrong, but they're just living their own life in a particular way. So they're actually quite an okay person. But now I've seen her and now, and I hung out with her for like 2 hours. I think it was like 2 hours and a half. No, I left feeling quite nice. But now, how much time between then and now until I see her again? Will I see her in 2 days' time and now it's, again, or will I see her in a month's time or 3 months' time or 6 months' time? For me, when I'm going through that, you can actually, me personally, I can feel when I say 6 months' time, it's like, oh, too long. 5 months, and then, okay, yeah, I can do that in there, and then maybe it'd be like an hour and a half. Okay, oh no, 2 hours, cool. And now I know my boundaries, kind of thing. You can feel that I can feel that in my body personally. I can't subscribe that as like a method for anyone else because I'm clairsentient quite strongly for my own, the way my higher self talks to me. But that's a whole other topic on how, we get our boundary setting from our higher self. Because I know for me, I'm quite a big giver and I love sharing it. I feel like I don't actually know what is actually good for me because I get so surprised by like staying in conversation for longer and letting things roll. So I'm still probably a little bit reliant on my higher self showing what my body telling me when enough is enough, which I think a lot of people actually are like that. I guess I'm just a bit new and not as savvy to it in a way, but yeah, that's me.
Trust me, I get roped into conversations sometimes. And occasionally it's like I can see it coming. I'm like, okay, don't go that way. And then my friends go that way and I'm like, it's a trap. Don't do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that
That's
awkward moment when you realize that you don't want to be in this conversation anymore, but they're still talking and you're like thinking in your head, okay, how do I end this? It's definitely
I can actually offer something if I want to like go or leave a conversation when someone's talking. I say, I'm just going to call for some containment here. I just say that I'm going to call for some containment here. Can you like summarize that into like something I can understand? And then they just shorten it down. But I have that for like my Zentai, but I give that as a full gift. If that's, you can practice saying that now. Just can you contain that down for me? Because people really respond to it, and it's like a it's a
Really?
uh
They respond to that? Because I would
yeah,
probably just stop talking to you immediately, like, all right, cool, this is done. See ya.
no, because it's what you say after it. So if you were
Mm.
talking, I'd say, can you like, I've only got like 2 minutes. Can you like contain that down into something I can like really get in a summary of like 2 minutes before I go? And then they're like, oh, no worries, because then you've set yourself a boundary and people respect that.
Yeah,
Where if you
yeah,
like
that
saying,
helps.
hey, I've got to go in 2 seconds, can you just tell me what else you have to say? And it's like, oh, don't worry, it's not that much. Or if you're asking for them to round it, and then there's actually a real subtle thing here. It's a subtle energy of what you'd say the fatigue of buzzwords. And it's like, can you summarize this for me? Corporate have absolutely ruined the frequency of saying that to someone. You can't say, oh, can you summarize that for me? Psychologists do it, corporate does it. You can't say that anymore. So you got to be careful these words that you're using to boundary set. So I'm saying you, but I'm just very conscious of that, the vibration, because you can elicit different responses from saying things in different ways. And as you just notably said, if I said that in the wrong way to you, you would just stop talking. So I've actually got to add a few more layers to it to actually make it quite palpable for people to then feel like if they did respect me and did feel what they're saying is important, they would kind of like wrap it up and do it within a minute or 2 minute hold there. Um, so yeah, I just give that as an offering if you ever want to try that out.
Thank you.
That's we're
That's a great
talking.
tip.
Yeah. It's a recently applied tip, and I'm like, fuck, that worked. Out of that phone call. Cool. Yeah. Um, but yeah, so I don't really know. I did want to go into like because I talked about masculine versus feminine into this call, but I didn't actually talk about the woo-woo divine masculine elements. And I was going to lead into it. It's like things such as like gravity and magnetism, and then the power of like the word and intent. And then there is uh gridding is actually quite a masculine thing to like set structures and like that is what it is and it can contain within. And then also structuring as well, like you're structuring something so then it can flourish or be within that space. But I am probably going to leave that open for maybe another time or another session. So it's a bit more of like a fluid dialogue because there's a lot of big ticket items there. Um, that I just wanted to like call out and say, hey, I didn't get into more of like the divine masculine side of things. I just got more into the philosophy side of like gender angles of things. Um, but yeah, let me know how that lands, I guess, Glenn, with what I've mentioned there.
Yeah, no, that resonates with me. It feels like it feels good. Feels good. Yeah, I was just kind of thinking like, the frequency that we're in and kind of looking ahead towards kind of what we're seeing like middle of the year, later in the year, because we have these really um things are moving so fast right now, and we're really
Mm.
kind of like plowing through. That's not the right word. That's not the correct frequency. We're moving, we're accelerating at a fast pace through the year, whereas previously I felt like we kind of had like, the seasons were very like linear and you had a bit of a break, but now it feels like where we used to get breaks, we don't really have a break, or the break is like it'd be like, oh, it's not as hard today on your body.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? Like it doesn't feel like
Totally what it is.
there's really any rest, and you would get these kind of pauses and breaks, and then it's like, okay, I can inhale, and then I'll get a little bit of space here where I can do some work, right? And then you work a little bit, and then you'd hit the next one. But now recently, it just feels like kind of almost like a sustained. Tell me how that feels to you. How that sounds.
I'll let Leni respond first because I'm curious to see what she says.
I definitely feel that. And I mean, all I can really do is just give myself the grace to listen to my body and move at the pace that I need to move at. And I kind of just have to remind myself that, like, because we are shifting into this new frequency and this new, like, dynamics of, like, I don't even know that our human mind can comprehend what does the crystalline template look like. Like, we can talk about it and theorize all we want, but my theory is, like, if we're truly evolving beyond the limitations of the past, then like what do things like age look like? Like, do we ever get old? Do we get younger? Like, who knows? Like, do we just kind of plateau and level off and stay, or do we get to choose? Like, is our dream state now a choice of, going into another multidimensional reality and then we wake up and come back or whatever it is? Like it's the possibilities are pretty much endless. And so what I've been sort of trying to ground and center into is the idea that we literally have all the time in the world. And so just not to stress it, just allow the collective energies to process. And I sort of like began identifying and embodying this a long time ago, that like if I'm going through something or I'm feeling dissonance or I'm feeling overly fatigued or there's a lot of energy, like just reminding myself that it's not just me and my stuff that I'm processing, because I very much took on contracts for the collective to sort of help be that bridge and that amplifier and that conduit. And so just to remind myself that it's okay to be a turtle and to just allow those energies to have the grace and space and take the time that they need to, because it always comes in waves for me. Like um they might be long drawn out waves sometimes, but those difficult energies always pass, and then get a burst of motivation, or um extra energy or extra joy, or the universe will send me something that just like sends me through the roof happy, and then I get to sort of ride that wave into the next like phase of the other wave, I guess. And so it's just kind of becoming this like almost surfing motion, this perpetual like energetic surfing, to just kind of get our sea legs a little bit in that context. So that's how I've been experiencing it.
Yeah, I mean, when you were saying that stuff, I had all these bloody concepts and things coming through, and I just want to relate and just say that like it's been really, I feel like I've been personally taking on the onus to go um do the best I can, and then accepting the fact that, you know, visually things are looking prettier. I'm having better conversations, I'm smiling more often and being in joy. And I think that counts as to like moving towards the right direction. I think when I think of people, I get a little bit disappointed at how much people take on the burden of the world being a certain way. And there's not much I can do to let them know my belief system, which is that it's actually all looked after and the world has always been this way. You've just seen more of it than what you used to. And I think we all get some spiritual um like calmness in our fields because we know everything's going to be okay. And the people who don't subscribe to this don't get that. And in Christianity and maybe in some Muslim cultures, there's Armageddon that's there instead, and so they're operating out of that.
Mm.
So, and then they're not allowed to, I mean, I'll say this very clearly, they're not allowed to know about solar flares affecting them. They're not given permission to understand when Gaia puts out a huge Schumann resonance and it messes with them. So they're going through their day, in these reactionary states, and they don't have, the tools of activating a protection field and sounding like, when I say this stuff, it sounds so silly and it sounds so duh, but then I get tangible results. And that's the problem, that I'm actually getting results from doing this, and I'm able to reapply and it works again. And then if I don't apply in the right way, it works in a different way. And I'm very scientific with the way I go throughout this kind of stuff. And yeah, something that does trouble me is the choose your own reality quality to what is happening at the moment. And you, me, all of us here are merging prisms right now. I'm not trying to be lecturing or anything like that. I'm just saying, like, right now, there could be a world event that happens as we talk, and because we're all on this call in this resonance together, we will leave this call and join in probably a similar resonance together. And it's like a really interesting concept that my physical body and human mind's getting used to, that I need to be even more strict with people who I'm around, because And to do that, I need to be more loud about who I actually am, because I can't be around people who secretly don't accept me. And it's a pretty hard thing to like really be forced on, but I'm so dedicated to being in the right timeline because I've lived such a bloody average life in some ways that I don't want to put it all to waste because I felt like keeping a Tom around, or I felt like keeping a Lucy around. And I didn't actually give them the chance to show me their colors, all because I was like, oh, I just talk sports with them. It's like, no, I'm actually like a quantum healer, and I just took someone to meet their, you know, their sun elemental yesterday. And then on this other call, I was talking to like someone's dead dad. You know, that's the world I live in. And if they like get squirmish and if they don't want to ask and try and relate with me, then that's that's on them, but I need to give them the option to see that and be like exposed to that. And